much for the marvelous talks. So we're actually running a little bit late, and so I suppose I should probably keep the Q&A session brief. But may I ask the audience, are there any questions with regards to any of the talks and materials that are presented this morning? Yes?
So I'd be quite interested in hearing about experiences with or knowledge about adapting computer-mediated learning to different personal cognitive styles and abilities and things, differences in memory ability, retention, the speed it takes to commit something to memory to the first time, visual processing, auditory processing, basically different abilities, cognitive abilities, yeah.
Okay, would any of our speakers care to share some views? I think, I mean, personally, I think being able to capture the data trace of the student learning in situ, I think that will reveal a lot of the abilities issues that you mentioned. I think we can track the process of learning and track understanding, as you could see in our last talk by Professor Zhu. I think it will be very revealing. Are there any other answers, comments? No? Other questions? Yes, Professor Lang Yi. At the back, yes.
Okay, I think one of the advantages of classroom learning is the instantaneous Q&A, right? So I just wonder whether this feature, how to accommodate this feature into e-learning, okay? Because students don't have the advantage of asking the question and then the teacher will be answering the question, okay? So I just wonder, with a class of 100,000 students, how can it be entertained, in e-learning?
Erwin, I think.
I'll say a few things, some technologies that can help. For example, there are some technologies using Q&A, question and answering system. So when you pose a question, we actually have a knowledge database that will find similar questions and the answer to that similar questions to you, right? So these are kind of template approach. Then on MOOC classes, in fact, there are TAs. They are standing by in the classroom hour or office hours that will respond to you. So I think there are ways that we could help to answer a particular type of questions. If it's some type of questions is like recurring question, that's FAQ, right? But sometimes you need to have a face-to-face. Then MOOC will provide video, face-to-face video link, one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many type of link to facilitate that type of things. So we are working on it, trust me. We're working on it. Have better engagement,
Great.
yes.
Yeah. Other questions? Yes, Gloria?
Computational thinking is going to influence the people's way of thinking. So how can I teach a primary kid to think like, use the programming mindset to think of that? Because for me, I'm an information engineering student, and I start learning programming when I was in year 1, and then it's very difficult for myself to adapt the program flow and then the logic thinking and so on and so forth. And so currently, I'm doing some program for the primary kids and like junior secondary school student about programming course, and I'm struggling to how to teach them to think on the program, like the way of program, what program think. Yeah, how can I teach them?
That's a great question, and I apologize I don't have a great answer for it. But I have to say, I think the first step to teaching children to, computer thinking is to learn to do it ourselves. I think that we have to cross that threshold in order to be able to teach it. In general, it's hard for a teacher to teach something that they haven't internalized themselves. So I do think that's the first step. I think that there are lots of resources and lots of people who are thinking creatively about how to use computer-related thinking, even without using computers, in various topics, including a lot of topics that children can relate to. And you can learn a lot by exploring these sources. So I'm not particularly an expert in them, and I don't think any of us are. But this is something that is becoming quite popular, and I think that there's a lot of work out there, a lot of kindred spirits, and doing a little bit of research will give you a lot of clues about how to proceed.
Yes, last question, Jenny, Professor Jenny Loy.
This is really a blue skies request rather than a question. When I was a student, the advice I was given is don't pick the course by the content, pick the course taught by the great professors. So I'm thinking, how can, and part of that great professors is the energy that they generate in the classroom. So I'm thinking, what kind of technologies can we be thinking about that can transmit that energy on a massive scale across the MOOCs? Just as I guess food programs want to transmit smells. So we want to transmit the energy that's taught by that great professor to the millions of people that will be taught. So I encourage all the scientists here to think about how we can develop technology to assist the transmission of that enthusiasm and inspiration to massive students.
That's another great comment. I don't think it's a question, but a comment. It occurs to me and lots of other people that with the as education moves online, and many of us think that this is just the beginning of a massive revolution, that education is going to be globalized. Professors are going to be sharing their curricular components globally over the internet with other professors in various other places. It's conceivable to me that in each domain there will be emerging a superstar who is the best at teaching that, and because of the global competition in this, this global shared curriculum, whoever is the superstar is going to emerge and dominate all of the others, and the others will sort of fall by the wayside. Now, that's a little bit unfair. I think that the great way of teaching, tensor calculus or whatever, is going to be contributed to by lots of people. People will contribute components. But the person who is actually the best at presenting them and lecturing may very well emerge as being the recognized expert. So maybe there'll be only one professor, superstar professor in each topic. Who knows? My colleagues may all disagree. I'm not the keeper of the microphone.
Okay. So, last comment? Yeah, one more comment?
It's a comment relevant to this. You said great professors can generate energy. Now there is another way to generate energy within the learners, and this is not the same way, but the idea of gamification has been applied to various domains. For example, language learning. I do not know how successful this can be in various domains, but I think that is one way of generating energy and enthusiasm within students.
Okay. So we have last request to
Alright.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
one
so
more. Okay.
Okay, I'd like to ask a general question. I think that when we look at online learning, I think one of the benefits is that we can connect the micro modules together into connecting so that people trying to learn a topic, you can connect the micro modules to teach them on a particular topic. The difficulties that we are seeing now is that these micro modules, each one of them are like a small program or small programming module. And each one of them may have slightly different input-output specifications. And when you connect them together, from the outside, they may look similar, they may look identical, or they may look connectable. But when you actually put them together, they are not, because they make different assumptions, they have different terminologies, and therefore, when you view them together, they don't make sense. I mean, that is the difficulty, I think, in online learning. From the philosophy, the general philosophy may look good, but there are practical difficulties when you try to do that.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the talk that I would have given today, if I hadn't been talked out of it by my colleague, Victor, is on precisely that topic. It's something that I'm very interested in. And there's a process that I refer to as commoditization of courseware that I think we need to go through. We need, and we've been through it in many, many other domains. Those of us who are old enough remember when personal computers and dynamic RAMs and so on got commoditized so that different manufacturers were producing different versions that were all plug compatible. Okay? We haven't done that in our courseware. As you point out, there are lots of things that are precious nuggets that are taught at MIT, but they're so intricately tied to other things that are taught at MIT that they can't be very easily exported. Okay? My view is that the solution to that problem, and this is a typical, straightforward engineering technique that we use in many, many other domains, but not yet in education. The trick is to come up with specifications of each module that are sufficiently accurate that they allow the module to be, replaced by some other module that satisfies the same specifications. And a couple of us have been working on a system at MIT, a prototype of a system at MIT that does that kind of, provides that kind of specification. We sort of call it a curricular API. That allows, fine-grained modules to be produced by lots of different sources, and, different people who produce modules that address the same set of curricular goals are in some sense competing with each other. But we're hoping to be able to enable a global competition so that the best way of teaching, each topic will kind of emerge by, people voting with their feet. So.
You can give this talk this afternoon.
Yes.
I could.
So, Erwin, you have one more? No? Okay, so with that, speaking of inspirational energy from rock star professors, I'm sure you agree with me that we had a very intensive morning of talks. But may I also reveal, actually, that our distinguished speakers from MIT, they were caught in this flight cancellation problem because of snow in Chicago, so their flights were canceled. And they had to reroute to Toronto. So in fact, they only, after a long haul flight, they only arrived in Hong Kong this morning at 5:30. So it's amazing, you still see so much energy from them delivering their wonderful talks this morning. And please join me in thanking them. I'd also like to thank Mr. Patrick Hoon, Mr. Ian Hoon, and Mr. K.T. Poon from the Sir Stanley Ho Medical Development Foundation for such a strong support that make this workshop possible. And finally, our student, our MC, Ms. Gloria Satine, and also our wonderful student helpers, please stand up and please join me to thank them too. Okay, so with that, I declare the completion of this workshop. We have learned a lot, and we know that we need to work very hard to leverage the potential of e-learning to make education better for ourselves and for our next generation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Professor Mang. This will be the end of the CHK MIT Joint Workshop.